Welcome to our podcast, Deep Dive MTR Explores Subsea Technology. I'm your host, Rhonda Moniz, and this is your portal to the latest news on all things subsea technology. This episode is brought to you by the publishers of Marine Technology Reporter, the world's largest circulation publication serving the global scientific, defense, and offshore energy subsea market. For more information, visit marinetechnologynews.com. So hello everyone, and welcome to this episode of Deep Dive. So I'm super excited. I have Dr. Dawn Wright on this episode of Deep Dive, and many of you know how cool she is, so we're going to talk about how cool she is, and we're going to get into what she's done in the ocean world and some of the technology she works with and some of the really amazing things that she's participated in. So first and foremost, Dr. Wright is a leading authority on the use of GIS technology in its application in the ocean environment. She's an elected member of both the National Academy of Sciences and the National Academy of Engineering, as well as the American Academy of Arts and Sciences. And she visited the Challenger Deep, which is amazing. As we all know, that's the deepest point on Earth. And she went there with a friend of ours, Victor Vescovo, we were just talking off mic about. He's such a cool guy, an amazing guy to work with, and a fellow explorer. So I'm super excited to have Dr. Wright on the show. So Dawn, thanks so much for being on Deep Dive. I really appreciate you taking the time. I know you get a busy schedule.
Well, thank you, Rhonda. And I'm so psyched not only to be on your show, but also that we both have Victor as common friends. In fact, I'm going to hold this up. This is Victor and myself as minifigs in one part of the limiting factor that was part of our Lego stop motion animated film that Victor and I were featured in going to Challenger Deep. So
that's awesome.
I had to throw that in.
Do you want to hear something funny about that? I was just going back and forth in emails with Victor, I think yesterday, and he said that you two are huge Lego fans. So you're going to have to tell us about that, because how that started or how that all came about. But first I want to start with it's so funny you held that up, because that was one of the things he brought up yesterday when he emailed me. It's pretty funny. But first I'm always curious. I'm always interested in, I started getting in, when people ask me, my background is in diving, scientific diving, and as an instructor and all that, and then getting into underwater robotics. And people always ask me, well, what was the impetus that started you becoming interested? And they're always, when I tell them I found this encyclopedia of all of Jacques Cousteau used to have an encyclopedia out actually back in the day. I found it at my grandmother's house. And then when they're like, oh, well, that makes sense. And then I say, well, the real thing that made me want to become a diver was I went to see Jaws. And they're like, what? I know, right? When everyone else was running out of the ocean, I was like, let me in. So
that's awesome.
So how did you get interested in ocean exploration and what you're so accomplished? What was your impetus? How did you get interested in it?
Well, I'll tell you, when I saw Jaws, I almost wanted to switch my path because I was terrified by Jaws. I had trouble getting into my bathtub for quite a while after that. But because I had long since decided that I wanted to be involved in ocean exploration and ocean science. When did Jaws come out? 1975. 75.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was 14 years old then. So I was long since on my path toward becoming an ocean person, because I decided at the age of 8. Now, so I grew up in the Hawaiian Islands. So that's the main impetus for me. It's really hard to, I think, grow up surrounded by the ocean and not be completely in love with it, not be completely enamored with it. And that, combined with Jacques Cousteau, had a role for me as well. You know, it was that Sunday Undersea World of Jacques Cousteau program that captivated so many of us. In fact, I was just in Cabo Verde, Cape Verde, Africa, just a couple of weeks ago, and I was visiting as part of a delegation and a State Department delegation. And then I had a separate trip to the Lantuna environmental nonprofit. They work, and I'm sorry to be veering off, but I'm
No,
going to
no.
veer back to Jacques Cousteau because I went to this very small fishing village where they're based, Porto Mosquito, on the island of Santiago in Cape Verde, and oh my goodness, they're doing wonderful work there in terms of protecting sea turtles and seabirds and sharks. But there is a gigantic and beautiful painting of Jacques Cousteau on one of their buildings.
Oh, wow.
They are getting part of their funding from the French government, and the impetus for a lot of their work comes from their early understanding of Jacques Cousteau and what he was trying to do in terms of ocean conservation. But it was just so surreal to be in that very small fishing village in a place that I had really never heard of before. I'd never been to Cape Verde or Cape Verde, Cabo Verde. It depends on whether you're speaking Portuguese. They speak Portuguese there as well as
Mhm.
Creole and English. Uh, it was just so surreal to be there in that on that tiny island in that tiny place and see this gigantic mural of Jacques Cousteau wearing the red beanie and
Of course.
of course and his impact has just been overwhelming.
It's interesting,
Yeah.
it's interesting you're talking about, Cape Cabo Verde because I'm in Massachusetts, and I'm a couple of towns over
Mm.
from where I grew up. I grew up in a small fishing village. It's a city. It's a small city. It's small by city standards. It's right on the water, and it's New Bedford. And New Bedford has a
Mm.
huge Cape Verde. I'm
Yes.
Portuguese, actually.
Oh
Last
my
name
goodness,
Muniz is very
yes.
Portuguese,
Uh-huh.
and there's a huge Cape Verdean population. So I grew up with Portuguese and Cape Verdean. I don't speak any of it. I only speak English, which is kind of one of my regrets because my elder family spoke Portuguese, and I wish I had learned it. But it's interesting. There's another connection.
Oh, it's a fantastic connection, and we learned so much about the Cabo Verde diaspora as part of this State Department delegation. And one of the members of the delegation, Matt Charette, is a professor at Woods Hole Oceanographic, where they
Oh
are
yeah,
involved in much community building. And he was there to make connections along those lines, as well as with the ocean science that's going on in the islands, as I was as well. And on top of that, I had read on the airplane the book by Skip Finley, Whaling Captains of Color.
ah,
Oh my goodness, it's a part of Black history, Black American, African American history that is certainly hidden. It's a part of Cabo Verde history that I think is much more well known in those islands. But I was completely blown away in terms of how many of these men not only worked on these whaling ships, but were captained those ships, had really vibrant, successful businesses, used their ships for more than just whaling. They used them for uh, shipping goods back and forth, and they were really really successful and free and amazing men on the sea. And part of our delegation was at one of the universities or institutes on São Vicente in Mindelo, and we were introduced to an anthropologist who had aided Skip Finley in writing that book.
that's
So I
amazing.
just could not believe that because I just read it on the plane over. I was so impressed by it, impressed by its details. And I was not, we didn't have time to really communicate and talk at length, but it was a thrill to meet him. And I showed him the book cover that I had on my phone, and we were like, "Yay!"
That's awesome. So, so that's amazing, and you also had. It's interesting because I always am fascinated by people's history and how they how they came about getting into, the ocean and industry in particular, and in specifically what they did. You were also, um, captivated by Apollo 11 as well, right?
I was, as probably every child was in the US at the time. Now, Apollo 11, that took place when I was 8 years old. So I was one of the little kids sitting in front of the TV set, glued to the TV. And there were so many little kids who were captivated by going into space. But my experience was sort of like you with Jaws. Everybody was having one reaction and thinking that they wanted to be astronauts, and I went the opposite direction, thinking that, oh well, this is fantastic to explore like that, and why not? Can we do this in the ocean?
Right,
Maybe I could be an aquanaut. I didn't really know what that word meant, or didn't really know anything at that time as an 8-year old. But I just remember being totally captivated by Apollo 8 and so proud also to be an American, and loved those astronauts. Uh, we have loved those men for all of our lives. You know, I think Buzz Aldrin is the only one left, and he is just such a precious national and global treasure. But at the same time, for me, with the Jacques Cousteau mojo going on, I really wanted to be an ocean explorer. So yeah, it had a good effect on me in terms of going the opposite direction.
it's interesting though that you bring that up about Apollo 11, because I've actually worked with, a couple of astronauts. I did some work at the Neutral Buoyancy Laboratory, and um, and I've worked with a couple of, astronauts out in the field, one on the Andrea Doria project that I was involved
Mm,
in, and there is a parallel, there's a lot, very I mean, the Neutral Buoyancy Laboratory, that's where they train them in that mock-up of the space station. That's where they get them
yeah.
accustomed to being weightless and doing, those spacewalks and things. So there's definitely a correlation, or, a parallel between the 2, and I can totally see how that would, inspire you to explore the ocean, because to me it's all the same, inner space, outer space. To
Hmm.
me it's this unexplored, territory pushing forward. Um, but you've done a lot with, now let's talk a little bit before I want to ask a little bit more about, ocean exploration, but, you're with Esri. Could you explain, what Esri is, and what you do there, and a little bit about Esri?
So Esri is a geographic information systems company. We are map makers, and we are spatial analysis tool makers. And we're probably the biggest and the best company that most people have never heard of. In fact, one one joke is that if you uh, receive a white or brown package, FedEx or UPS package, we are the company behind that package getting to your doorstep. We've also been described as Google Maps on steroids, because we provide mapping services uh, pretty much for every type of technology, from the cloud to your phone, even your wristwatch. GIS is a technology that more people need to really know about. It's really it's an enabling technology. It's a utility now, because it really is everywhere. It's in every industry. It's in every scientific field. Uh, every endeavor where you're using maps and data to solve some of the world's hardest problems, or to explore, even in outer space. We have developed this fantastic globe, interactive globe of Mars, with NASA JPL, and you can fly over the surface of Mars with their data and with our technology. So we are a company that is based in Southern California. And by the way, ESRI is an acronym. It stands for Environmental Systems Research Institute. but it's a lot easier for people to say ESRI or ESRI. And we're in about 650,000 organizations worldwide. Again, we have big accounts with UPS and FedEx, Starbucks. The next Starbucks that pops up in your community is likely there because of the site suitability location algorithm that Starbucks uses. That is ours, and they use our mapping services. We're in about 12,000 colleges and universities, over 12,000 nonprofits, the big NGOs such as the Nature Conservancy and National Geographic. We're in most of the world's governments. And Victor and his Caladan Oceanic team used our technology as well during the five deeps. So this amazing company, it's a privately owned company, and I serve as their chief scientist. So I'm not in marketing or sales, or I don't even code. I'm not in software development. But as chief scientist, I'm the scientific strategist for our CEO, Jack Dangerman. And I work across the company to make sure that we are doing good science, that we're connected with the scientific community, especially in areas such as hydrology and forestry and weather and climate. Conservation biology has been a big emphasis of our company, ecology, agricultural science. A lot of the social sciences, especially urban planning, of course, is huge for us, and ocean science. And as this software company, we do all kinds of other cool things. We are on various scientific boards and councils. We're on a lot of collaborative research projects. We work with some of the largest earth sciences organizations in the world, such as the American Geophysical Union, the National Academy of Sciences, the various committees there. So it's really quite an amazing company. And I was lured there from Oregon State University, where I was minding my own business as a professor of geography and oceanography, but also doing a lot of teaching and research with geographic information systems and specifically with Esri's technology. So Esri made this lovely connection and asked me to come and work for them full time, and I did that in 2011. But I also remain on the faculty of Oregon State University, so I think for me it's the best of both worlds.
You're busy for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
As the blue economy grows globally, Marine Technology Reporter has the world's largest audited subsea audience. MTR offers insights and analysis from researchers, innovators, and thought leaders in ocean subsea commerce, defense, and academia. At MTR, we always stay one step ahead. For more information on how you can stay on the cutting edge, go to www.marinetechnologynews.com. So, as far as I know, you're a leading authority on GIS and GIS technology. Can you talk a little bit about it specifically in its ocean application, and why is that important? It's because I'd like to talk about mapping. I know it's interesting because a lot of the people that I've worked with, and it just seems like recently over the course of the past couple of years, this pops up quite a bit. Victor obviously is very interested in ocean mapping, and Jyotika
Oh,
Vermani, who's
yes.
yeah, I've
Yeah.
worked with Jyotika. She's another person that's just wonderful and just so accomplished as well. Just like yourself and Victor, in this area of ocean mapping. And I've had Jyotika on my podcast as well, and I had her on Sea State, and it's fascinating, and I think that people don't realize how important it is to map the ocean and why it's important. So could you talk a little bit about your experience, because I know you're, a leading authority on the GIS application in that area, and so can we talk a little bit about that?
Yes, and Jyotika is one of my favorite people, and her institute, the Schmidt Ocean Institute, uses our technology as well. If you have any type of a location, a latitude, a longitude, and for us in the ocean, a depth. That is absolutely critical to the types of activities that you're doing in the ocean, as well as how you're trying to uncover what the ocean is telling you in terms of why is it behaving a certain way, how what parts of the ocean need to be protected, what kinds of services can the ocean provide to us. All of those activities and all of that knowledge needs to be mapped and visualized in some way. And that's why GIS is so important in this, and why GIS is often not mentioned as much, because I don't want to say it's been taken for granted, but it has been absorbed now into the normal activities of ocean research, and also all of these activities of what we call the blue economy. So, for instance, we at ESRI are working very, very closely with the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, because they use our technology across all of their divisions, all of their line offices. And they want to work with us on a next generation GIS for the ocean. So this is a way to map and to analyze how we are using the ocean for maritime safety, for shipping, for response to spills or collisions at sea. How should we be using the ocean for renewable energy? And again, these are often questions of where. Where is the best place, for instance, to site wind energy turbines in and on the ocean? Where are the best places to take advantage of wave energy? How much of the ocean, how much is the ocean absorbing heat and greenhouse gases for us to buy us time in terms of climate change? We can measure all of that through the instrumentation that we put into the ocean, the instrumentation that we take along with us at sea. Just about everything that happens uh, that is deployed from a ship. Again, it's an X, Y, and a Z, and also a T, X, Y, Z, and T, latitude, longitude, depth, and time. There are other ways that GIS is used in terms of protecting the ocean, siting and managing marine protected areas, and where, again, where should the next marine park or marine protected area be, and what kinds of activities should we allow in these marine protected areas? No marine park or marine protected area is the same. Similar, perhaps similar to our national park system, where we have different activities that are allowed in our national parks. There are the recreational activities, but there is also some really compelling and important scientific research that goes on in many of our national parks. In many of our marine protected areas, and it's wonderful that we have a new Chumash National Marine Sanctuary off the California coast that was put forward by uh, our indigenous Chumash tribe. They have ideas as to how that part of the ocean needs to be restored, needs to be brought back to health. But there are other activities that are allowed in some of our sanctuaries, a very limited amount of fishing, a very limited amount of energy extraction. Uh, all of this is keeping in mind how we balance all of these activities together, along with the recreation and the tourism. GIS is a spatial tool that really helps us to balance these different activities, as well as help us to really understand what the ocean is trying to tell us in terms of biodiversity, habitat. This moves into the realm of governance, regulations, boundaries on and in the ocean, and how do we regulate activities. The GIS is the map. It's the spatial foundation for all of that. So it's really a huge, huge area now when we think about and when we talk about the ocean. And so that helps people to understand the why of all of this. Why do we care about mapping, for instance, the ocean floor? Why did Victor and I map our small little postage stamp of Challenger Deep when we were down there? Well, when you step back and think about one why, it's my favorite example is even our ability to talk to each other on your program, your podcast, and how you're going to stream that hopefully around the world for everyone who has access to the internet to receive our conversation. We have over 1.3 million kilometers of cables that
Wow.
stretch across the ocean floor. And those submarine cables keep all of our keeps 95% of our internet traffic going. It's the intercontinental data traffic. It's phone calls. It's streaming videos, podcasts, radio shows. All of that is dependent on our knowledge of the ocean floor. There's the whole idea of shipping, moving goods across the planet. That certainly needs to have accurate maps of the ocean. There is the whole idea of public safety, especially in the U.S. We've dealt with Helene and Milton, and there are also the dangers from tsunamis and understanding when the ocean comes to us, comes to our shore, where are those dangerous waves going to go? And that is governed by the nearshore bathymetry and also our understanding of how hot the ocean is in terms of how angry and uh, how what's going to be the velocity of those waves. What does an overheated ocean, how is it going to behave when it comes to shore? That helps us with evacuation planning and with all kinds of public safety activities that need to happen in terms of not only getting people evacuated, but getting goods and services to people, caring for people, that whole public safety disaster response. There's fisheries, there is the security and the efficiency of our ports. There's all kinds of environmental impact assessment that's needed. We could spend the whole program in terms of why it's important to map the ocean. But those are some of the big examples that always come to mind for me. And then there's the big esoteric question in terms of we don't know. We think we know about the ocean. We think we know about this planet. 71% of it is ocean. 92% of that ocean is deep. It's below 200 meters. And yet, as Jodica probably related to you, because she's one of the stalwarts, as I am, in terms of the Seabed 2030 initiative to map the ocean floor in modern detail by 2030. And then there is the world that you and I and others have really dedicated our lives to in terms of visually observing the ocean. Our friends at the Katie Croft Bell and the Ocean
Hmm.
Discovery League, her team, they have recently calculated that only 0.001% of the deep seafloor of the deep ocean has been visually observed. So we still don't know what in the world we are dealing with, what we are talking about. We think that we know this planet, and we don't, not in a way that we need to. So this is why we do what we do.
It's true, and it's amazing work that's going. I actually worked with Katie as well. I was on Bob's. I was hired as an ROV pilot for him on a couple of expeditions, and I worked. Katie and I worked together, and yeah, and it's amazing the work that's being done by people like yourself and Jodica and everyone else on mapping and how important mapping is. And I know that you have a new book, Mapping the Deep, and I want to talk about that. But before we do, I want to ask you, I have to ask you because it's fascinating to me. First of all, you're the first Black individual to be able to go to Challenger Deep, which I think is amazing. That talk about being historical. We started talking about that early in the conversation. But I'm also just intrigued by what that experience was like. I mean, I think it's just amazing that that you were able to participate in that and be a part of that. What did you how what was that like? How did you feel? Like, I know it's just, to me it's I'm okay, I'm dorking out right now. It's just, to me, such an amazing thing. What was that like?
It is. It's like when you pilot an ROV. I think it's a similar thing. You are in this. We've both talked already about how we are in this unexplored realm, and we're in a fluid. The atmosphere and the ocean. They're both fluids. Even when you go inner space as opposed to outer space, it's a space. It's a crazy. Well, it to me it feels crazy at first that I'm going into this space, but at the same time I'm drawn there as if I belong there. I've had these conversations with Sylvia Earle about going to these places where we as human beings cannot live, we cannot breathe, we cannot see, we cannot exist because of the crushing pressure. And in a way, it's an alien, hostile, scary place, but at the same time, it is our world. It is our planet. And Sylvia always reminds me that you do belong there. We are all somehow interconnected. Even and Victor calls Challenger Deep his happy place. At 16,000 pounds per square inch in complete darkness. But I really understand what he means now, how a little bit about how he must be feeling. He has been to the deepest place ever more than any of us. When he took me down, that was his 15th descent to Challenger Deep. And it was still, I think, for him as it was for me being there for the first time. It's wondrous, it's jaw-dropping. It is like a moonshot. It is like
It
there
is.
is that parallel to going into space, landing on the moon, landing in Challenger Deep, thinking back to what I saw on the TV of Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin stepping onto the moon. Well, I felt the same way dropping into Challenger Deep, and Victor turned those lights on, and we could see where we were. To me, I think it was a very, very, very similar experience of being insignificant, but also being significant as well. It's so hard to relay it in words, and I think this is one reason why astronauts are so poetic. They've gotten really good at this.
It is, there is, it's just, I mean, I can only imagine, but I can see the parallels, and it's just such a remarkable thing, to be a part of. I think it's just amazing, and, for you to have been a part of that, I think is just extraordinary. And, it's interesting you said that when you, were on that dive, you mapped that area where you were? Was that part of it too?
Yes, now, and this is also wonderful that you're bringing this up because uh, the mission of our dive was indeed to map with a prototype instrument that was affixed to the bottom of our submersible that had never been tried before with the limiting factor. But another really important factor is that the ship, the pressure drop, Victor's ship, which is now the research vessel Dagon, because Victor sold everything to Inkfish Expeditions.
Yeah.
But that ship has one of the most advanced multi-beam mapping systems in the world, and that ship has done a tremendous amount of mapping of the ocean floor and contributing that data to Seabed 2030. So it was the mapping that the ship had done of all three pools of Challenger Deep that helped Victor and I to figure out. Well, there was a team of us, our expedition team, to figure out the best place to land in Challenger Deep. In we went to the western pool of Challenger Deep, which is of the three pools is one of the depressions in Challenger Deep that is the least visited, I believe. But it was this nested mapping ability, the regional mapping that the ship gave us. It gave us this bathymetric map, and then we, Victor and I, tested a prototype side scan sonar to see if it could give us images of the bottom, similar to the images that you see when there's a search for a shipwreck or for a lost plane. It's a
Right.
different way of using the sound pulses from these instruments. Our little side scan sonar instrument did not help us in terms of measuring the travel time of the sound pulses coming from it and then returning to the instrument. That gives you a depth. What it specialized in was measuring the strength of sound pulses returning to the instrument, and that strength of return is translated to an image that you can see. And there are parts of the image that are more reflective or that show up as white against a dark background. And that's normally how you see a shipwreck. This
Right.
same instrument, in fact, had been used uh, to discover the deepest known shipwreck, the Samuel B. Roberts, off the
Yep.
coast of the Philippines, about a month or so before Victor took me to Challenger Deep. And it's also that same team of engineers. This is Deep Ocean Search, the
Mhm.
company that's based in, I think, both France and Mauritius. They were the team that helped to find Shackleton's Endurance, and I think their movie is coming out on Disney Plus in a couple of months about finding the Endurance. Well, they used this same type of instrument. The challenges with these instruments is that they normally fail at around 6,000 meters. But if we want to use these wayfinding or feature finding instruments throughout the full ocean depth, all the way down to as deep as Challenger Deep, we need to adjust the design and the engineering of these instruments, and that's what Deep Ocean Search did for Victor, and for me in terms of I was the one lucky enough to operate the instrument with a laptop inside the sub. But our purpose was just to see if the instrument could turn on and give us live data at full ocean depth at 10,900 meters plus, which it did, which is really, really
That's
fun.
amazing. That's
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah, that's remarkable. And you're right as far as, I've worked on, been on expeditions with, deeper, not 10,000 meters, 5,000 around in that area. And, I mean, it is no small feat to work in, places with that kind of pressure and, just the time it takes to get there.
Yeah.
No matter what you're
Yes.
putting in the water, just the time it takes to get it there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's people don't realize it's a huge undertaking and a huge operation that is, a lot of engineers and scientists like yourself and, pilots, and it's just remarkable. Explorers, like Victor, it's remarkable.
Yeah.
That it's also pretty interesting that, you talked a little bit about this new advancing technology. This kind of thing advances technologies. This is exactly what does that. It's always a necessity, right? And there's
Right.
a need, and
Yeah.
that's when you got to figure it out. And I've always said to people, when I've been on expedition and I'm in a container and something goes on the ROV and we're trying to figure out, uh-oh, or a scientist comes in and says, listen, I need to collect this type of substrate or whatever it might be. And then we say, well, how are we going to do that? We've got to come up with some kind of a tool that we can use on the manipulator arm to be able to.
Yeah,
You got to figure it out there. You can't run
exactly.
down the road to Home Depot or and say,
Yeah.
"Hey, do you have these machines?" Or go to some lab down the road. That's you can't do it. You've got to figure. You got to be inventive, and you have to figure it out. It's the necessity of it. You need to figure it out in the field on the go. A lot
Oh
of
my
times.
goodness, yes, and the engineers who do this, the technicians who do this in the field are brilliant.
Yep,
To
I
me,
agree.
they do not get enough credit in my view. It's sort of like the Oscars go to the actors and the directors, but the stuntmen,
Right.
they are like the stuntmen who are doing these amazing things and totally saving the expedition, saving the day, and really our lives are in their hands, truly.
Absolutely, absolutely, I agree. Now, what about, Mapping the Deep? Can we talk a little bit about that? That's your new book that's out. So, can you tell us about that?
Yes, so Mapping the Deep tells the story of the Challenger deep dive. There's been so much interest in the dive, particularly in the GIS community, which I think is really cool. And I've done a lot of podcasts and a lot of interviews, and there there's some things that you do that you're probably going to be it's so wild and so crazy that you're going to be talking about it probably for the rest of your life. And there's so many
Mhm.
opportunities, but beautiful. I'm so grateful for the opportunities to talk about what happened on that expedition, and also to take each and every opportunity to thank Victor and all of the his Caladan Oceanic crew who are now they've moved over to Inkfish. But there's always appetite for a book, and a book is a wonderful thing that people can use in so many uh, different ways, educating, inspiring. And we have a press at Esri. Another interesting thing about Esri as a software company is that we have our own Esri Press, which
Oh,
publishes any number of different kinds of books. It started off, I believe, publishing documentation about our software, but Esri Press now publishes atlases, publishes research monographs, publishes inspiring memoirs, all kinds of different books. And the Esri Press team came to me with the idea of a book about the Challenger Deep expedition. I've been so busy that I haven't had time to just sit down and write the book. So Esri Press worked collaboratively with me to actually write the book. So that's why the book is Mapping the Deep: Innovation, Exploration, and the Dive of a Lifetime by me with Esri Press. And so together we we do two things in the book. It's an adventure memoir, so it's about the Challenger Deep adventure and everything that happened, all of the juicy bits, as they say, in terms of what that was like and how that was done, and how GIS was used, since we're a GIS company. So that's one part. But the second part of the book is also a call to action. So the book pivots from the adventure memoir with also information about me and about my background, but moving to what about you, dear reader? Uh, what can you do? This book goes a little further to describe how mapping the deep is done. What are the different technology, ROVs, submersibles, all the way up to satellites? How do we map the deep? And how does the data get from the instrument or the vehicle to the computer and the computer software to give us these amazing maps and visualizations? And why, again, this is critically important, going back to the earlier discussion about why do we care? Why do we map the ocean floor, from everything to getting our streaming videos to saving our lives in the face of a disaster? This is all critically important for everyone to know about and to care about. and the book ends with some very specific a very specific lists of some of the things that you can do. You can join forces with many of these nonprofit organizations, such as Katie Croft Bell's wonderful Ocean Discovery League, which does so much to help uh, the global south or smaller organizations to explore and map and take care of their coastal communities with so called cheaper and deeper technologies, or their organizations such as Sylvia Earle's Mission Blue that help you to learn about and to participate with blue parks. There's all the things that we do at Esri with all of the data and the applications that we make freely accessible. There are all the reminders about plastic. Uh, we need to reduce our plastic use, especially with straws. Thinking about plastic pollution in our waterways, on our beaches, and there are many organizations that you can participate in. There are so many organizations. You don't have to live near or on the ocean. There are many of these organizations that are in Arizona and North Dakota. I mean, everybody can play a role and can play can do their part to save the ocean, which is essentially saving the planet, which is essentially saving us. So
Right.
that's the last part of the book.
So, where can people get the book?
So people can get the book on indie pubs, on Amazon. There is also one of the things that's very unusual about this book is that it comes with a very, very, very extensive hub. We call it in the GIS language. It's a data hub. It's a website. It's a website that has it's a wonderful companion to the book with tons of free data sets and maps, blog posts, images, videos, tutorials, even comics for kids. There is the Lego stop motion animated film featuring me and Victor.
That's
Uh,
awesome.
so so you can some people may not even read the book. They may just go to mappingthedeep.com and they can get a lot of information there. There's an audio version of the book coming out as well. So this will be the first Esri Press book with an audio version. And I'm one of the people participating in that, of course. And there's also the astronaut link because Kathy Sullivan wrote a very moving foreword for the book, and there's information, a lot of information about Kathy Sullivan in the book, and she and a lot of digital resources about her on the site. And Kathy Sullivan is well known to many of us, most of us, all of us in the ocean community, but a
Yep.
lot of Americans. I was really surprised that they didn't know who she was. Oh my gosh, she's the first American woman to walk in space.
Yep.
So she was a
Yep.
NASA astronaut. She was the administrator, a wonderful administrator during the Obama administration of NOAA. And Victor took her to Challenger Deep as the first
As
woman.
well. Yep.
So yeah, so she now is the most vertical person in the universe, as she says, having been up in space and then down in Challenger Deep. And it was actually through her that I got my invite by Victor to go to Challenger Deep. So if it hadn't been for Kathy Sullivan, I'm not sure if I would have been known to Victor or if I would have been invited by him. So I'm very, very thankful to her as well. Kathy also has a very close relationship with Esri, and is a great friend to many of us at Esri.
That's great. And, yeah, she's amazing. I'm at some point reaching out to her as well. I'm working on a nonprofit for young girls. I do a lot of
Ooh,
talks to get young girls
hmm,
interested in STEM, and so I have
yeah.
a new nonprofit that I'm putting together called Expedition Her, which is gonna focus
Oh,
on people like
that's
you
terrific.
and her, and
Yeah.
women in with the whole educational component. So I'm pretty excited about that. And so I'm definitely reaching out to her as well, and I'll be coming back to you too, Don.
Well, there's so many of it. We can't get enough of these organizations, these nonprofits, such as what you are working on. That sounds so fantastic. I've just come from San Diego State University, and they have a really vibrant, amazing Women in STEM program that is for their faculty and staff, but it bleeds out into the San Diego, the East San Diego community, and also to the broader community that the whole university works with. It's really wonderful. We just can't get enough of these types of programs. So there's a lot of wonderful work for all of us to do.
I agree 100%. When I started out years ago, I had no mentor. I had no one to kind of point me in the right direction. I had no support. And, I just showed up and kept showing
Yeah.
up. And, when I was hired by Bob Ballard, I was his first female
Oh,
ROV pilot.
wow.
And,
Yeah.
that meant a lot to me. And so I'm always trying to pay things forward. And so that's why I've come up with this expedition her. But it's important to get young girls interested and understand, show them that they can do it too.
Yes.
You know, very much so that it's just a really important, it's a very important thing that I think has been overlooked for a long time, and it's past due. So
Oh,
I'm really
yeah.
excited to talk. I'm always excited to talk to people like you, and I worked with Katie, and I've chatted with Sylvia many times and run into her. I've got a great picture of her and I at the Explorers Club that I love. I've got to figure out how to frame it,
Yeah.
and because
Yeah.
it's such a great picture, I just love it. We're just hugging on each other. But anyway, um, and Jodica and people like Victor too. Victor is so pro. He's very much like he was one once said, "Have you talked to Dawn?" Or he mentioned Kathy as well, and he's a great guy, and he promotes a lot of women in the industry as well, and I love that, and Bob does a lot of that
Yeah.
too. So I just want to focus on having young girls realize that, yep, you can do it too, and you can do it. Just don't even don't listen to the noise, just move
Yeah.
forward, kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Oh, I
um
totally, yes, and we keep thinking that there'll be enough of us to where young girls don't even have to think about this. They just
exactly.
say they'll just be in school and think, oh well, I'm going to choose this. This is totally for me,
Yep.
and we are at the point where that is not the case.
Nope. No.
I've had young black people tell me that I don't know how to swim. I didn't know that getting wet, even getting our hair wet, was something that black people could do. And I'm like, oh my goodness,
Right. It's
Lord help us. No, no, this is totally for you, and we need you.
Needs to all that needs to change. I agree
Yeah.
100%. So what's next for you? What do you have? What's the next what's your next? I know. This is a silly question because you've got so much going on. But what's your next expedition, or your next adventure, shall we say?
Well, the expedition part has been a real gift because I really had stopped going to sea on a regular basis about 10 or 15 years ago, probably more like 15 years ago, because I have transitioned into this work with Esri, and the work with Esri, a lot of it is shore based, or working at Esri, we do not collect data. We do not go to sea. We do not go into the field as other organizations do. We make the tools that optimize that data, and that help to ensure the success of those who are in the field. But every once in a while, we do get the opportunity to go into the field ourselves. And for me, going to Challenger Deep with Victor was a wonderful, special project, especially given the relationship between Caladan Oceanic and Esri. In fact, Victor had asked me to come out to sea with him in 2020 when Kathy Sullivan made her dive. They needed mapping support on the ship, and we were not able to do that, unfortunately, because I think that was in March of 2020,
Oh,
and the pandemic was starting
yeah.
to take hold, and everything was shutting down. I believe all of them, Victor and Kathy, they were already out in Guam. So thank goodness their operations were not affected and they were fine. But in terms of others coming out to join them at Esri, we just couldn't do it. We were shut down, and we found another way to support their dive through a series of story maps telling the story of the dive and of really of the five deeps and of Caladan Oceanic, and that was the beginning of a really nice closer relationship with them. And also just finding out in terms of Victor's intentionality and his generosity in taking others out with him. Nicole Yamase was on our expedition. She was the first Pacific Islander. Nicole Yamase, Dr. Yamase, she has since gotten her PhD in marine biology from the University of Hawaii. Just a wonderful, fantastic person. She is Moana. You know, Moana 2 is coming
Yeah.
to theaters. To
Yeah.
me, she is the modern day real life Moana.
That's awesome.
and and the work that she has done, she's Micronesian, uh, throughout the Federated States of Micronesia to inspire her people and to inspire Pacific Islanders. Uh, a lot of that came because of, in part, because of her dive with Victor and how he has promoted her in that way. YT Lin is a colleague that I've not yet had a chance to meet. He's now in our neighborhood here at Scripps Institution of Oceanography, and Victor took him to Challenger Deep as the first person of Asian descent. And
Mm.
YT Lin also worked with a prototype acoustic instrument with the submersible. I mean, they're all of these. There's actually a very nice. But the Explorers Club probably has all of this data, but there's also Wikipedia from time to time does a very nice job of chronicling all of this, and there's a very nice list of people who have been to Challenger Deep and all of the firsts there. And there needs to be a list of, or maybe there is, in terms of you being the first female ROV pilot for Bob Ballard. I mean, all of these, I tend to think of us as hidden figures, you know, like the
Yeah.
movie Hidden Figures.
Mhm.
And it just keeps going on, and it's just
Yep.
amazing.
Mhm. Yep. I agree 100%. I'm just that's why it's important to me to pay it forward for young girls and especially and so what's next for you? What do you have? What's the next?
Oh, well, I never did get a chance to actually tell you what's next. I think I veered off on another tangent again. Oh, I was telling you why I hadn't gone to sea in a while and how I don't really go to sea anymore. But I think what's next for me is this all of the wonderful things that Esri is involved in, and particularly on the climate change front. And we are part of the global movement towards the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. We had a team at COP16 on the biodiversity COP. And so my work at Esri continues along those fronts, but I have this new, I don't know how to describe it. It's an appointment with the U.S. State Department as a science envoy. So this is why I was in Cabo Verde recently, and there are more of those trips to come. So that's probably for me something I'm very excited about. Never heard of anything such as a science envoy for the U.S. State Department, but it's a wonderful program that they have, and I'll be focusing on that for the next year. And it also provides fantastic opportunities to open up partnerships and avenues of collaboration with the university or the company or whatever your organization is. It's a great way to tie into needs in, for instance, in Cabo Verde, where Esri, we are starting to work with Lantuna, the nonprofit there. We are starting to have conversations with the State Department about how to make the best use of mapping across the State Department. There are projects along the lines of small island developing states, helping helping those countries and those areas with their sustainability goals. So I think the next trip for me might be to the Indian Ocean, working with the State Department. This is something where I'm still with Esri, but you have opportunities to do these missions or be part of these visits to countries, along with the State Department. So it just blows my mind, but that is something that is really amazing that's happening right now.
So you have a lot going on, and you have your social media channels are you're at Deep Sea Dawn. If people want to look you
Yes,
up,
yes, it's Deep Sea Dawn, on most of the channels. I'm still hanging on there, on Twitter. I refuse to say X. uh, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Threads, Blue Sky, which is a wonderful new space, especially for scientists. So it's Deep Sea Dawn on all of those.
well, it's been a thrill for me to have you on the podcast.
No, I have been so honored, and delighted to speak with you, Rhonda. I think this has been a wonderful conversation, and thank you also for asking about the book and giving me the opportunity to let your audience know about the book, about the website.
Well, I am crossing my fingers and my toes right now as we speak that I get a chance or an opportunity to work with you at some time in the future. I'm hoping.
Oh my goodness.
I would that would be an honor. So I'm going to cross my fingers and cross my toes on that one. And yeah, I appreciate you. I know you have a really busy schedule, and I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me today and in spending time with me because it's been fascinating. You're doing such amazing work, and I love female heroes. You're a female hero, and I love that because it's powerful and it's amazing. And so thank you for being that as well. It's so important now.
Oh, thank you. And you are totally a female hero too. We'll have to do like an Avengers or a
We're going to have
Justice League
to.
thing in Cabo Verde. We
And th and
let's
then we're
go to
gonna have to
Cabo
have
Verde.
Legos made.
Yeah.
We have to. I gotta get
Yes.
on this Lego thing.
Yeah, we'll
I
make
feel
you a
very
minifig.
left out.
Oh, yes, you can. Well, the wonderful thing that Lego has done now is that you can make a minifig of just about anyone because
Fantastic.
they provide all of the range of hair textures now, the heads and arms with skin tones, a whole wide range of skin
That's
tones
awesome.
and expressions, clothing, legs.
That's
It took us
awesome.
so we were able to do my I've had a minifig for quite some time, but it's wonderful to have Victor's minifig made, and I sent him uh, a version of his minifig.
That's
But
awesome.
we could make a Rhonda minifig. Anybody now can be a minifig. So
Excellent. That's on my list.
okay,
All right. Well, thank you again so much for being on Deep Dive. Thank you.
thank you, Rhonda.
This episode of Deep Dive was brought to you by the publishers of Marine Technology Reporter. Interested in being a guest or a sponsor for Deep Dive? For more information about this podcast and many other opportunities for your company to stay informed and in the know, go to marinetechnologynews.com. And as usual, hit like and subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. See you again on the next Deep Dive.